All right, we're here at San Diego State University again with Dr. Chris Manning, Vice President of Student Affairs and Cultural,
Campus diversity.
Okay, close enough. Yes, we're so thankful to have you here for a little brief interview. But we just want to know, from your perspective, being someone in kind of the administration, how do you feel the campus and the university does as far as encouraging young voters?
This particular campus actually does really well. We actually had a conversation about that with our government relations folks just yesterday. I learned that our campus is designated as a space to enhance voting capacity in the local community. And I know that we have had a very active role in increasing voter turnout in the local community as well, in some part due to our associated students and the work that they do. They should get a big degree of credit for that.
And if we can go back in time slightly to the campus protests that were happening, how was it serving in leadership as an administrator, sort of dealing with the campus protests that were happening on this campus and then across the nation in general?
It didn't bother me very much. I'm a 20th century American historian of civil rights and race, ethnicity, various forms of identity. I smile a little bit when people say this is the most divisive time in American history because obviously they don't know history. The Civil War was actually a lot more divisive. The 1960s were a lot more divisive. If you just, for example, if folks on listening to this interview are interested in the Black experience, there's a really good book called The Black Protest on Campus, and it's by Martha Biondi. I might have the title wrong, in which Biondi looks at the effort to create ethnic studies programs across college campuses in the United States, Black studies programs in particular. And those protests alone, not to mention Vietnam, not to mention women's rights, not to mention LGBTQIA rights, those protests alone were far more divisive. It had far more violence occurring with regard to people who were involved than anything that we're seeing today. I actually find it a little bit surprising the extent to which institutional leaders are reacting to current protests as if it is something that is on a greater scale than something that's been seen in the past. One of the points that I like to point out is that many of our leaders are presently of the baby boom generation. This is the same generation that brought us The Whole World is Watching. This is the same generation that brought us the Democratic Convention of '68. This is the same generation that brought us Stonewall. This is the same generation that brought us the walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. So for this generation to be looking at the protests on campus recently and thinking of it as being something that's in excess, I find a little bit surprising and don't entirely understand.
And with our coast-to-coast trip doing voter engagement, we are targeting primarily 18 to 25-year-olds, and being in your position, you work with that age range a lot. And so I'm curious, what made you want to get into this type of work, and what have you enjoyed the most about it, working with these young people?
Well, the reason I wanted to get into this work is to some extent motivated by young people, but it's largely motivated by what higher education does. In my opinion, higher education is the single greatest vehicle for social mobility, for enhancing equity, for advancing equality, and for advancing opportunity, period. Nothing has done that more than any other, no other institution has done that more than higher education. A small example, look at the great changes wrought in this nation after the GI Bill allowed working class people to go to college. You know, prior to the GI Bill, college was largely the purview of privileged white men. Not even working class white men went to college. The GI Bill radically changed this nation by allowing folks from all sorts of classes to go to college. It even changed the studies that we do. African American studies wouldn't have been possible had it been done in the way that it was being done prior to post-World War II folks going to college and looking at it from a working class perspective. That's just one historical example. So everything that we can do to make college a place that's more accessible, more open, more equitable, and does more to advance the successes of everyone who walks through that door, the more we're doing for this country.
And if I could ask one last question, sort of a two-parter, what are words that you live by in terms of how you exist and operate in the different spaces you show up in? And then the second part is, what advice would you give to someone like myself or someone of my age range? Actually, no, just advice in general that you would give to another individual.
Well, I guess there's a couple sets of words that I live by. None of them sound great, so I don't know how this is going to go with this interview. But one that I will find myself saying all the time is winners do what losers don't want to. Another one that pops into my mind, which no one here is going to know, are the lyrics from Heavy D's song, We Got Our Own Thing. And in that song, he says, don't clock anybody, let them all clock you. Don't be down with anybody, let them all be down with you. Stay self-managed, self-kept, self-taught. Be your own man, don't follow no reward. Started with a pound, I'm going to end it with a bang. We got our own thing.
Oh, wow.
And so that verse stays in my head a lot. What I would say for advice for anyone, I guess it would be two parts. You don't need to know where you're going to end up, but you need to have some direction about where you're going. Mm-hmm. If you don't have a plan, you're not going to end up anywhere. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't change, but without some goal that you're aspiring to, there's nothing to sort of pull you to life, through life, and integrate the practices that you call your habits, the practices that you call your disciplines, etc. In fact, it's really hard to develop them without a goal. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be wedded to that goal. As one of my teachers says, you don't want to be a slave to your own method. Your method is supposed to serve you. You're not supposed to serve your method. But having a goal is important. And the second thing that I would say is take any opportunity to grow and become better, and don't be scared of it. Just do it. It's like the lyrics say, don't clock anybody, let them all clock you. Don't be down with anybody, let them all be down with you.
Right.
Stay self-managed, self-kept, self-taught. And so when those things come into your life that are opportunities, go for them, get them, and be better than anybody else at them. And then wait for the next ones to come in, because they will.
Wow.
Well, yeah, that was amazing.
I think that's how we end. That was great. Wow. Thank you so much.
It was fun.
Really
Appreciate it.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you so much.